The broadcast cut through the silence of space like a blade. On every screen, across every planet in the galaxy, the message was the same. General William Drake of Earth, condemned for crimes against the Galactic Council, will be executed a human, hanged by alien hands, broadcasted as a public spectacle for the entire universe. It was supposed to be a statement, a lesson for the upstart species, a warning to those who thought they could defy the order of the galaxy. Instead, it sparked a fury that would echo across the cosmos. Drake stood tall on the execution platform, his hands bound, but his gaze unwavering. He had been the best Earth had to offer, a soldier, a tactician, a leader. For years, he had fought alongside the human special forces in countless battles, always emerging victorious. His reputation had spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy, but not all were impressed. The Galactic Council, an ancient assembly of the galaxy's most powerful alien races, saw humans as little more than a nuisance. A rising force too dangerous to ignore and too unpredictable to control. The charges against Drake were fabricated, an elaborate lie cooked up by the very species who felt threatened by Earth's rapid expansion. They accused him of crimes he had not committed, all to justify this brutal act. And the Council, the very beings who had wiped out entire civilizations with little more than a passing glance, had ensured that no one would dare challenge their decision. But Earth would not be silenced. As the countdown to his execution reached its final moments, President Alicia Grant watched the broadcast from her command center, her fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the controls. The world held its breath. There were no words, no speeches to rally the people, no grandiose proclamations. The only thing that mattered now was what happened next. "Earth will not let this stand," she murmured, barely audible but resolute. Across the world, as the execution drew closer, a growing tide of anger surged. In every major city, in every corner of Earth, protests erupted. People who had never considered war, who had never thought to raise arms against the Council, now burned with a primal need for justice. The sight of a human, one of their own, slaughtered for a crime he had not committed, pushed them past the point of no return. As the noose tightened around General Drake's neck, humanity's fate was sealed. The Galactic Council may have thought they were extinguishing the fire of rebellion, but they were unknowingly fueling it. For the first time in history, the world united in its fury. All the divisions, the petty squabbles that had once kept humanity divided, were gone. There was only one thing now. Revenge, The moment the signal went dark and the deed was done, Earth's leaders moved swiftly. President Grant, with a heavy heart, signed the declaration. Earth was now at war with the Galactic Council. It was not just a declaration of battle. It was a declaration of humanity's defiance. The world would no longer be ruled by alien forces, no longer bow to the will of those who sought to control them. The Council had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Humanity was not a species that would bow. They were not a species that could be intimidated into submission. No matter how powerful the Council's forces seemed, they had overlooked one crucial thing. Humanity had never known defeat. With the execution still fresh in the minds of millions, Earth's military began its mobilization. The special forces, the elite of humanity's armed forces, began to assemble. No one knew what the future held. No one knew how far this war would go. But they all knew one thing. Earth would fight, and it would not stop until every last alien in the Galactic Council paid the price for their actions. This was no longer a battle for survival. It was a battle for retribution. And Earth would not rest until the blood of its enemies stained every corner of the galaxy. The first wave came in the dead of night. For months, the Galactic Council had been preparing their retaliation against Earth, confident that humanity would cower in the face of their might. But they had underestimated the resolve of a species that had never bowed before any force, natural or artificial. The Council had thought Earth's outrage would fade with time, that the execution of General Drake would be a temporary spark quickly extinguished. They were wrong. The moment the Council's fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Earth, their intentions were clear: annihilation. Hundreds of ships, massive and menacing, entered Earth's orbit. They deployed their troops with military precision, launching thousands of drones and fighter ships as a first wave. The alien fleet had the firepower to crush Earth's defenses in an instant, but they had no idea what was waiting for them. On Earth's surface, the world's capital was a storm of activity. Military commanders, strategists, and government officials gathered to formulate the defense. President Alicia Grant, standing resolute in her war room, gave the orders that would set the stage for humanity's first real war. We fight for our survival. We fight for Drake. We fight for the future of our people. It had been years since Earth's military had been called to such dire circumstances. The Alliance forces, a coalition of the strongest military factions from every nation, had only been in place as a deterrent, a peacekeeping force. But now it was time to show the galaxy what humans were capable of. Special Forces units, the most elite warriors Earth had to offer, immediately mobilized. They had trained for moments like this, for battles against impossible odds. As the first wave of alien ships closed in on Earth, the sky itself seemed to shudder under their weight. The capital cities, now military strongholds, activated their defenses. Earth's military had prepared for a confrontation on this scale, and while their technology was nowhere near the level of the Council's, human ingenuity and resilience were unmatched. The first shots were fired, and Earth's anti-orbital cannons rained down on the invaders. The battle for the planet began. It was chaos. Alien fighters swarmed the atmosphere, their sleek, otherworldly ships darting and weaving through the debris-filled skies. But the Earth's forces were not far behind. From every continent, humanity's best pilots scrambled into the air, meeting the alien invaders with everything they had. The sound of explosive fire filled the air, and Earth's soldiers, brave and determined, fought with a ferocity born from the desperation of knowing their world was at stake. On the ground, Special Forces soldiers moved with deadly precision, their mission clear: to defend their cities, protect their people, and strike back at the invaders. The first wave of Council troops had landed in strategic zones, deploying alien infantry in highly coordinated assaults. They were met with relentless human resistance. Earth soldiers, despite being outgunned and outmatched, fought back with the fury of a species that had known war from the very beginning. But the aliens were not the only threat humanity had to face. As the invasion intensified, so did the pressure on Earth's infrastructure. Communications were down. Power grids flickered. Civilians were trapped in the crossfire. In the midst of this turmoil, President Grant watched the chaos unfold on screens across the war room, her eyes steely. There was no turning back now. Earth had to fight, and they had to win. In space, the battle raged on. Earth's orbital fleet, consisting of a mix of hastily repurposed ships and civilian vessels turned into war machines, managed to hold off some of the Council's forces. But their numbers were still overwhelming. The alien fleet was relentless, launching missile after missile at Earth's defenses. For every one that was intercepted, 2 more took its place. But humanity, in their desperation, found a way to adapt. Earth's military engineers worked feverishly, coordinating with pilots to hack into alien weapon systems, turning their own technology against them. It was not enough to stop the invasion entirely, but it slowed them down, buying Earth precious time. Time for what, exactly, no one knew yet. But the one thing that was clear: humanity had tasted the price of defiance, and they were not going to go down quietly. The skies above Earth were a battleground now, and there was no turning back. The Galactic Council had made a mistake, one they would come to regret. As the first wave began to falter, the Council's fleet sent in reinforcements, but Earth's warriors, bloodied but unbowed, were ready for the next phase of the war. The fight for survival was just beginning, and the humans were not about to lose their home without a fight. The sound of boots hitting the ground echoed through the sterile halls of Earth's underground command center. President Alicia Grant stood before a vast array of monitors, all of them showing a war-torn sky, her face bathed in the soft glow of the screens. The first wave of alien ships had been repelled, but Earth's victory was far from secure. The Galactic Council was relentless, and its retaliation was unyielding. What Earth needed now was an edge, something beyond their raw determination and rudimentary technology. And that edge had arrived in the form of a message. The encrypted transmission had come in the dead of night, a mysterious communication from an unknown alien race. The sender's identity was hidden, but the message was clear. Help Earth, and we can defeat the Council together. The aliens, calling themselves the America, had been a neutral faction in the galactic conflict for centuries. They had watched as the Galactic Council had expanded its reach, crushing any species that dared resist. They were no friends of humanity, but they had their own reasons for wanting to see the Council fall. The America had lost too much to the Council's imperial ambitions, and they recognized in humanity a burning defiance they had not seen in generations. With Earth's defenses stretched thin and the war escalating, Grant had little choice but to consider their offer. If humanity stood any chance of surviving, it had to be through alliances with those who had the courage to challenge the Council's might. The America were not without their own motivations. Their race had long resisted the Council's control, but their people were scattered, fractured, and isolated. The America lacked the cohesive military structure of the Council, but their guerrilla tactics, mastery of stealth technology, and deep knowledge of the galactic underworld made them valuable allies. As Grant and her inner circle debated the terms of this unexpected alliance, the stakes of the war became ever clearer. Humanity needed strength, not just to defend Earth, but to make a stand against the forces that sought to crush them. It was time to put aside old prejudices. The Council had forced humanity's hand, and if Earth was to rise from the ashes, it would require unity, even with those who had once been considered enemies. The first meeting between humanity's military leaders and the America took place in a hidden asteroid base, far from the prying eyes of the Council spies. It was a risky move, but it was their only option. As President Grant descended into the meeting hall, she couldn't help but feel a mixture of unease and determination. There were too many unknowns, too many ways this could go wrong. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and this meeting would determine whether the fragile hope for survival would blossom or die. The America were a species unlike any other. Tall and willowy, their skin shimmered with an iridescent sheen, their eyes large and reflective, betraying an intelligence that had long surpassed most other races in the galaxy. Their leader, a seasoned warrior named Kaltora, was as enigmatic as he was formidable. He had seen entire civilizations fall before the Council's might and carried the weight of those losses in every movement, in every word he spoke. Grant met Kaltora's gaze as they sat across from one another, the weight of centuries of conflict between their people hanging in the air. Despite their differences, there was an unspoken understanding. The Council had made their enemies of them both, and now they would either stand together or fall divided. "We fight for the same reason," Kaltora said, his voice low, but full of conviction. "The Council seeks to control everything. Earth is merely their next conquest. But it will not be. Not today. Not as long as you are willing to fight." Grant nodded, sensing the sincerity in his words. But there was still doubt. Could they truly trust these aliens, these former enemies? Was their alliance born out of shared hatred, or did the America have a hidden agenda? One of her military advisors, Colonel Andrews, voiced the concern aloud. "What guarantee do we have that the America will not betray us at the first sign of weakness?" Kaltora's eyes narrowed. "You have no guarantee, but then again neither do we. The Council is everywhere. Is not just your people who suffer under their boot, but ours as well. Our pact is forged in the fire of necessity, not trust. You need us. We need you. The truth hung between them. Trust would not come easily. But in war, there was no room for idealism. Earth had no choice but to embrace this uncertain partnership. As the meeting concluded and the America delegation retreated to their ship, Grant watched them leave with a heavy heart. The war was far from over. If anything, it had only just begun. But now, humanity had allies. Unlikely allies, perhaps, but allies nonetheless. And in the face of the Council's vast power, that was enough to give them hope. The hum of the war room was deafening, not because of the noise, but because of the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. On one side of the room, officers and strategists hunched over glowing consoles, plotting the next move. On the other side, President Alicia Grant stood alone, her gaze fixed on the map of Earth's defenses, blinking with lights, faint echoes of a civilization on the edge of collapse. The battle for Earth was no longer just a matter of survival. It was a fight for the very soul of humanity. The alliance with America had provided an unexpected boost. Their guerrilla warfare tactics had already proved invaluable, sabotaging Council supply lines and crippling some of their communication networks. But it was still not enough. The Council's forces were vast, its ships seemingly endless, and the sheer power of their weapons was almost beyond comprehension. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about turning the tide in their favor. The human military machine, already stretched to its limits, had to evolve if it was to have any hope of winning. Grant's thoughts were interrupted as Colonel Andrews, her most trusted military advisor, approached with a report in hand. His face was grim. "Ma'am, we've intercepted another wave. The Council is assembling their next strike force. They've started deploying superweapon prototypes. Our conventional defenses won't hold much longer." He laid the data before her, an analysis of the new alien weaponry, ships designed to obliterate entire cities with a single strike. It was unlike anything Earth had ever faced. Grant's heart raced. The odds were insurmountable. Earth's military had fought valiantly, but the sheer scale of the Council's might was crushing. Even with the America on their side, humanity was at a disadvantage. She scanned the battlefield on the map, a continent of flashing lights and looming doom. "We need more firepower," she muttered to herself. "Ma'am," Andrews said, a hesitant edge to his voice, "I believe we have one last card to play." Grant turned, narrowing her eyes. "What do you mean?" "We've been working on a new weapon," he said, tapping a few keys on the console. A new screen lit up, showing a rough sketch of a massive structure, part station, part ship, bristling with alien technology scavenged from the Council's wreckage. It was a prototype, and the very idea of it seemed both dangerous and brilliant. "We call it the Titan," Andrews explained. "It's a colossal warship that combines human ingenuity with the most advanced America tech we could recover. It's still in early stages, but it's our best shot at turning the tide." Grant studied the design, her mind racing. It was an enormous vessel, far larger than any human ship in service. Armed with dual plasma cannons, multiple railguns, and an array of advanced shield generators, the Titan was built for one purpose: to breach the Council's most formidable defenses. But it was incomplete. The weapon was still untested, its systems not fully integrated. There was a risk of failure. But failure was no longer an option. "How long before it's ready?" she asked, her voice steely. Andrews hesitated. "A few days at most. But we'll need to coordinate with America to ensure full functionality. Their knowledge of Council tech is invaluable, but there's always the chance something could go wrong." "Get it done," Grant ordered. "We'll fight with whatever we have." As the days passed, the Titan began to take shape. Its construction was a marvel of human and America engineering, stealth technology, advanced weaponry, and a battle-hardened crew of both species. Special Forces troops, now seasoned after weeks of combat, trained relentlessly for the moment they would board the ship and take the fight directly to the Council's heart. But as the ship neared completion, the Council was not idle. In the darkness of space, their own war machine began to rumble to life. Their spies had uncovered humanity's plan, and they had responded with a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were preparing their final push, one last, overwhelming strike to crush Earth once and for all. When the final hour arrived, Earth's military was ready, though none could shake the feeling of unease that loomed over them. The weight of the impending battle was unbearable. The Council's fleet arrived in waves, vast formations of ships descending upon Earth like a swarm of locusts. The atmosphere above the planet crackled with tension as the massive ships readied their weapons. The America, their sleek warships darting like shadows, joined Earth's forces in orbit. The two races, once enemies, now fought side by side, their combined firepower a force to be reckoned with. But it was the Titan that would make the difference. As the battle raged in the void above Earth, the Titan emerged from its hiding place, its engines roaring to life as it broke free of Earth's orbit. It was a massive presence, larger than any warship in the galaxy, bristling with energy as it powered toward the Council's fleet. Its weapons fired with deadly precision, tearing into the alien ships, while the human and America forces struck from all sides. The Titan was humanity's weapon of vengeance, and it was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. But as the battle reached its peak, the Council unleashed their final trump card, the superweapon they had kept hidden for centuries. A massive construct capable of draining the life from entire planets, it was aimed directly at Earth. And as the monstrous weapon powered up, it became clear that Earth's war machine would have to make its final stand. The question remained: would the Titan and the combined might of humanity and their America allies be enough to destroy the Council's ultimate weapon before it wiped out everything they had fought for? The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as the superweapon aimed directly at Earth's surface began to charge. The sheer power radiating from it made the space around the planet feel suffocating, as though the very stars themselves were dimming in fear. Earth's defenders, still rallying in the wake of the first wave of battle, now faced the unthinkable, a weapon capable of wiping out entire continents with a single blast. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the Galactic Council's final message to humanity: submission or annihilation. Inside the Titan, President Alicia Grant paced restlessly, her hands clasped behind her back. The warship's bridge was a flurry of activity, with officers and soldiers monitoring every move of the battle outside. The ship's massive shields flickered under the strain of constant enemy fire, and the deep hum of its weapons systems was a constant reminder of the stakes. "Ma'am, the Council's superweapon is online." Colonel Andrews' voice cut through the noise. "We've confirmed the trajectory. If it fires, it'll reach Earth's surface in less than 2 hours." Grant's gaze hardened. The time for hesitation had passed. They had no more room for strategy. The only thing left now was to strike with everything they had. Her thoughts turned to the America, who had fought valiantly alongside humanity in this war. But this final battle would require more than just tactics. It would take a sacrifice, one that could turn the tide once and for all. "Colonel, prepare the crew for a direct assault. We're going to take down that weapon, no matter the cost." Andrew's expression tightened, the gravity of the order weighing on him. "Understood, ma'am." For the first time since the invasion began, Grant felt a flicker of doubt, an uncertain tremor in her chest. It wasn't fear of the enemy. It was fear of what might be required to win. The Council had underestimated humanity before, and they had paid the price. But this weapon, this colossal engine of destruction, could obliterate Earth in one strike. The stakes had never been higher. The Titan rumbled as it pushed forward into the heart of the enemy formation, its immense weapons locked on target. Human and America forces coordinated their attacks with deadly precision. The Council's fleet, a mass of formidable ships and drones, closed in. But the Allied forces refused to falter. The air in the command center seemed to thicken with the weight of their mission. "All units, focus fire on the superweapon," Grant commanded, her voice unwavering despite the storm of chaos outside. "We cannot let them fire." The ships of the Galactic Council loomed ahead, a terrifying sight of technological might and crushing power. But humanity's fighters, once inexperienced and overwhelmed, now fought with an unshakable resolve. It wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about showing the galaxy that Earth could no longer be cowed. As the Titan closed in on the enemy's flagship, the immense superweapon came into full view, a massive, glowing construct that seemed to vibrate with destructive energy. The weapon's massive barrels pointed toward Earth's surface, charging in preparation for the final blow. Humanity's hopes rested on one simple fact: they had to reach it before it could fire. The battle grew fiercer, ships exploding in bursts of light, the void of space lit up by flashes of plasma fire. The Titan raked its massive weapons across the enemy fleet, cutting a path toward the superweapon. But the Council's ships closed in on all sides. Even with their incredible firepower, the Titan was no match for the sheer size of the enemy armada. The stakes were clearer than ever. If they didn't destroy the weapon now, Earth would be lost. President Grant's heart raced as she watched the countdown on the monitor, seconds slipping away as the superweapon charged. In that moment, everything hinged on one final gamble. If they failed, there would be no second chance. Andrews turned to Grant, his face grim but determined. "Ma'am, we're going to have to make a run at it. The only way we get close enough is by taking out the enemy fleet's command center. It's the only way we can make it to the weapon in time." Grant nodded, her decision clear. "Do it. And tell the crew, this is our final chance." The plan was desperate, a last-ditch effort to push through the Council's defenses. The Titan would fly directly into the heart of the enemy fleet, a massive target, but their only hope of reaching the weapon. It was a one-way mission, but they had no choice. With the power of the ship's engines at full thrust, they moved forward, weaving through enemy fire. The shields flickered under the barrage, and explosions rocked the ship's frame. But the crew held steady. It was as if every second brought them closer to a new beginning, or to the end of everything. As the Titan bore down on the superweapon, the unthinkable happened. A surge of power from the America ships, coordinated with perfect precision, disabled the main defensive grid of the Council's flagship. The skies erupted in fire as enemy ships faltered, leaving a gap in their formation wide enough for the Titan to drive through. With mere moments to spare, the massive warship loomed over the superweapon, the final blow imminent. Grant gave the order: "All weapons fire." In a blinding explosion of light, the superweapon erupted into 1,000 pieces, its core annihilated in an instant. The power of the blast rippled through the battlefield, sending shockwaves across space. Earth was safe, for now. But even as humanity celebrated its victory, a chilling thought crept into Grant's mind. The Council would not let this defeat go unanswered. This was only the beginning. The war was over. The Galactic Council had been shattered, their greatest weapon destroyed, and their forces scattered. For Earth, it was a victory that had come at an unimaginable cost. Countless lives lost, cities reduced to rubble, and the very fabric of their civilization stretched to the breaking point. Yet, in the aftermath of the battle, as Earth's surviving military forces stood victorious, a new reality began to take shape. Humanity had secured its place in the galaxy, not as a helpless colony, but as a new and formidable power in its own right. President Alicia Grant stood in the now-silent war room, the walls around her adorned with the flags of Earth's once fractured nations, now united under a single banner. The room had been filled with the sounds of orders and coordination just days before, but now it was still, calm, yet heavy with the weight of what they had achieved. The screens before her, once flashing with desperate messages from the front lines, now displayed the flickering results of their victory. The Galactic Council was no more. The news had spread quickly across the galaxy. The destruction of the Council's superweapon had sent shockwaves through the known universe, and with it, the fear of Earth's rising power had set in. Earth, the species that had once been an afterthought to the greater galactic community, was now a force to be reckoned with. Grant could feel the eyes of the world upon her as the media broadcast her speech to billions. The words that had once been filled with uncertainty and fear now held a quiet resolve. "We have fought and bled for this moment," she began, her voice unwavering. "And now we stand not as servants, not as refugees in the vastness of space, but as the rightful heirs of this galaxy. We will not allow the same tyranny that sought to crush us to rise again." The Council thought they could silence humanity with their power, their weapons. They were wrong. Earth stands united. And from this day forward, we will stand not just as survivors, but as the leaders of this new era. The world cheered. The war had torn Earth apart, but it had also brought it together in a way that no diplomatic summit, no treaty ever could. The division between nations had evaporated in the face of a common enemy. The wounds of war would take time to heal, but humanity had been forged in the fires of battle, and it would never forget the cost of its victory. As the President finished her speech, her gaze drifted to the screens once more, showing a fleet of ships, Earth's first true military fleet. It was a combination of human-made warships, now modified with the advanced technology scavenged from the Council's ships and the America's knowledge. The Titan, once a symbol of desperation, now stood as the flagship of Earth's military armada, a beacon of hope and power in the void. But even as Earth's forces celebrated their hard-won victory, there was a nagging uncertainty in the back of Grant's mind. While the Council's leadership had fallen, there were still remnants of their vast empire scattered across the galaxy. And other, more dangerous factions had already begun to stir in the shadows. The galaxy, for all its peace, was not a place of harmony. It was a place of endless conflict, and Earth, now a rising power, would inevitably draw the attention of those who sought to exploit its newfound strength. And then there were the America, valuable allies in the war, but potential rivals in the new order of things. They had their own ambitions and their own reasons for helping humanity, but Grant knew better than to trust anyone completely. The galaxy had long been shaped by power struggles, and she understood that Earth's place in the stars was not guaranteed. As the celebration continued, Grant convened with her military and diplomatic advisors. The next phase of their struggle was beginning, an even more difficult one. Earth's victory had not secured its future. It had simply set the stage for the next conflict. There were no guarantees of peace. There was only one truth. Earth would have to fight to keep what it had won. "Our rise has only just begun," Grant said, her voice cutting through the discussions around her. "We've proven ourselves in battle, but now we must prove ourselves as rulers of this galaxy. We will need alliances, we will need power, and above all, we will need wisdom. This is no longer a war for survival. It is a war for our place among the stars." Her words were met with solemn nods. The war against the Galactic Council had been brutal, but it had shown Earth what it was capable of. The same resilience that had carried humanity through the darkest days of the invasion would now be tested in the political arenas of the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, Earth's influence began to grow. New alliances were forged, though fraught with tension, and the remnants of the Council were hunted down, their power structure dismantled piece by piece. The universe, once united under the banner of the Council's iron fist, now stood on the precipice of something new. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would Earth. As Grant stood at the window of her office, looking out over a city rebuilt from the ashes of war, she understood the weight of what they had accomplished. Humanity had risen, not just as a survivor of the Council's wrath, but as a power that would shape the future of the galaxy. But there were still challenges ahead, and Earth would meet them, not with fear, but with the unyielding spirit that had carried them this far. The age of humanity's ascendancy had begun, and there was no turning back.